Here. We are here. We are here. We're not yet on YouTube. And I'm going to wait until we're streaming over on Instagram for it to go live. Yep, we're streaming. Sick. All right, let's go live.
Give me a second. I'm going to plug in I got an adapter for my iPad.
Nice. Well, we are live. Welcome to Wednesday Night Live. I am Jimmy.
I'm Greg.
And we have Greg here. Greg is going to be a little bit louder than me because he's got an Apollo.
Because I'm better than everybody.
Because he's better. So today we determined, thanks to Chris Chris Bumstead, or it's not Devin Bumstead. My God, I'm thinking Chris Bumstead. My bodybuilding and my like worship guitar world names are getting confused. Okay, so yeah, Devin Bumstead tagged me in a story today regarding Maris presets, and he's like, yeah, since Maris doesn't have an editor for the Mercury X, everyone go check out mine, right? So I'm like, I am the editor. I am the editor for all things.
Do you remember the parody that Will Ferrell did of the architect from The Matrix? He's like, I am the architect.
No, I don't remember that. Oh my god!
I wish you could quote that right now. That would be.
Oh my gosh! Well, we have a pretty eventful, I think a pretty eventful stream planned out. We have some things. We have kind of a loose timeline that we
play fast and loose here on this podcast.
Fast and loose. Yeah, we got a lot of people here. We got Case Study Effects just joined in.
Look at that! Holy smokes!
We got people asking questions already. Okay, so y'all, we're gonna be chatting and talking about obviously Big Sky. We're gonna be talking about Big Sky versus Mercury X. We're gonna be talking about the user interface, why that's important. We also have kind of a cool topic that we're going to be talking about a little bit later, which is Greg's plug-in guitar rig.
We'll call it Computron.
Computron. We'll call it Computron 6000.
Computron right? 6000.
Just like not to be confused with Powerman 5000, or maybe you will be maybe you will be the Powerman 5000.
I think we need to coin that. I think I need to get a little badge plate that says Powerman 5000.
Bro, well, I mean, they're a band. You could probably just go get like one of their.
That's what I'm saying. Just go to their website and order get some like little arm like jean jacket.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Hot glue it to the pedal train.
There you go. Actually, speaking of pedal train, okay, so it's pretty well known that I'm selling some stuff. I've been pretty open about, hey, I'm trying to sell stuff so I can get this dang vintage AC30, right? Okay. In me trying to acquire that. Oh, Jem just joined the group too. Hey, Jem. So as part of me trying to fund that, I'm looking to maybe even sell my PVC, right? So everyone's been like, well, what are you gonna replace it with? What are you gonna do? Like, some people are like, you should go with the gig rig. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go with the gig rig. Not a huge fan of it.
You don't have $1,800 laying around?
Say what?
You don't have $1,800 laying around?
Yeah, they're pricey, man. Hold on a second. Had a bit of a technical problem there.
I saw you blipped out for a second.
Yeah, hoping it doesn't. Sorry, we're doing this.
Yeah, that shine is.
We're doing this very ghetto rig right now. We're doing this very Jimmy rigged, if you will.
Jimmy rigged.
Anyway, so people have been asking me about, what would I do if I got rid of the PPC? And basically, I would pretty much definitely go with the PPC 6. It would just be a change of rig. That's pretty much it. So I would go from this like crazy full featured 10 loop thing with parallel loops and all that kind of stuff to something more akin to what Devin is doing on his rig, which is all drives and compressors and signal based stuff like drives and whatnot, and any mono pedal would all be in the looper, and then you'd have the actual stereo effects either after the looper or in the last stereo loop That way you can just kind of quickly turn it on and off. So
You could if you wanted to get one of the new Mini Gizmo X's because they've got stereo inputs and outputs. And because it's like an 8x5 by 3x5 brick, you could put it like a power supply and then even put a pedal on top of it. And that way you wouldn't lose the buffer or the functionality. And it's got its own editor too.
okay. I mean, but what would I do for MIDI control?
You can send MIDI to it.
No. What I'm saying is, what would I use a PBC 6 for
Yeah,
MIDI
you would use it.
control,
You
or-
would use it in conjunction with the PVC 6. Then you could have all your loops, all the loops.
Okay.
I guess
Anyway,
let's ask this first question: is having your wet effects in loop detrimental?
where's that at? On Instagram or YouTube?
What's on Instagram or YouTube?
That question, or were
Oh
you
no,
asking
that's
me
me.
that?
That's me. I'm asking you a question.
I don't think so.
No, I don't care who's on right now. This is between you and me.
Okay, so the question is, are like your
Do you
delays?
need to have your wet effects modulation, delay, reverb? Do you need to have it in a loop with a buffer, ISO?
Technically, I don't. I have all. So okay, so if I'm using a switcher that is not going to include the stereo effects, then no, I don't need it. It's not necessary.
Sure.
It is. And honestly, it was more of a thing where it was more useful when I was running all my effects in parallel.
Sure.
When I was running all my effects in parallel, that's when having the switcher with the parallel mixer was useful. But since I've been doing everything in series for the last 6 or 7 months, it's not been as necessary. In fact, there was actually a brief while there when I had all the loops kind of locked in the on position, and I was essentially using MIDI commands to turn the pedal on and off. Which I would probably do. If I went to the PBC 6, I would do that. I would use MIDI commands to bypass.
It sounds like a waste of $500
for the PBC 6.
For the PBC for the Mini Gizmo X. You would add that in tandem. But that $500 could go towards your Big Sky MX.
The Big Sky MX. That's a great segue. That's a great segue.
I try.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So Strymon did the Strymon thing where they, seemingly out of nowhere, they just dropped the I think probably the most anticipated reverb of the last maybe decade? I mean, when did the Big Sky come out?
Big Sky is at this point, I think it's 10 or 11 years old. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it was 2013. I remember seeing one in Florida in like 2013 or 2014, like the first time somebody got one within the first month or two that they were available. So I think I would probably say that Big Sky 2.0 has been anticipated for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely everyone not everyone. I mean, basically, people. I'm gonna sound super pretentious when I say this. Everyone who has been like crazy, like growth and development minded, and very tech minded, has been waiting to see what they would do.
Sure.
You have companies like Eventide who are pretty much always trying to advance the industry in terms of how they do their stuff. And then obviously you have guys like Maris. I mean, Line 6. I mean, Line 6 for a while there was. I mean, I guess you can make the claim that people who are Line 6 fanboys are waiting very patiently for an updated Helix, right? But
the Helix MX.
The Helix MX, because the fun. Okay. Let's talk about this. For a while there, I still call it the Mercury X MX because LVX, MX, whatever. Do you think any of that was intentional between Strymon and Maris?
I'm sure that.
Or maybe on either side. Maybe do you think Terry and Angelo had some insight into what Strymon was maybe going to be working on? And I don't know.
I
Because the
mean,
MX does kind of seem a little left field. Like, what does the MX stand for? Multi accelerator?
much expensive.
Mucho expensive ante in Jimmy's
Spanglish.
Spanglish, terrible Spanglish.
I mean, they are in California, so I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I don't
I
know.
think that I don't think that there was anything intentionality in that. I think X just has a cool factor to it.
Yeah, but MX it has to mean something.
I'm sure it's like, well, it's like Mazda and Honda. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you put the DX, they used to put the DX and the EX behind the Civic, and nobody really knew what it meant.
Or maybe MX is short for DMX. Rough
He
Rider.
he lives.
He lives.
He
Because he
lives.
lives, I can buy
Rough ride tomorrow.
because he lives, I can buy a $700 reverb.
Big
That's
Sky gonna give it to you. It gonna get okay.
oh my
Um,
gosh. Ultra white. Ultra Oh my god. Okay, All About Worship Guitar says it's a
Here we
Gen
go.
Z way of spelling Max without the vowel. There you go. So it's
Oh,
laziness.
okay. That's that I was gonna say. Yeah. So the boomers in the room, we all
Yeah.
just groan
I'm
and
like,
roll
oh,
our
these
eyes.
these young kids. Yeah.
Somebody hand
We
me my Gibson.
yeah. So we do have a question. Christian Torres 01 on Instagram says, "How do y'all handle when different guitars handle? Wait, what? How do you handle when different guitars handle your wet effects differently? That's a lot of different wordage. How do y'all handle when different guitars handle? Like, I mean,
We talk about like input signal. Like, is like if there's a guitar with hotter pickups, like it's gonna push the reverb more, or
possibly. I mean, okay. So I accommodate that not for the sake of my effects, but for the sake of my like drive section and compressor stuff.
sure,
That's why I use the RC booster just
kind of
to.
as like an attenuator booster.
Yeah, it's honestly it's funny. The majority of the time I have the gain set to Unity, and I just use the treble knob just to cut a little bit. Because even with 57 on a cab, even as you know, present as they are, you still get proximity effects when you're that close to a speaker. So it's nice to cut out just a little bit of low end on the guitar, the pedal board side. So that's what I do.
I just use my volume knob on my guitar.
Brendan McBride said, "If the first Big Sky preset we will sell can be called Ultra White." There we go. There
Man.
we go.
There we go. Man, I'm usually in all black too. This is kind of a weird get up for me.
That is so funny.
That is
Yeah.
hilarious. Ultra white.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the Big Sky. So if
What's up, Timothy? What's up, man?
So in terms of features, looks like they have a handful of new. They have updated reverb algorithms. I'm not sure. So I'm so used to what Maris calls. Maris calls them structures instead of algorithms. I mean, it's to me it's all the same. Whatever. So okay, they updated a handful of their reverb algorithms, right? They added in the ability to insert your own impulse responses, which I think that is actually probably the biggest like huge sell. Like
So
to me,
Polydigit, the company, did
Yep.
that like 6 months ago with their and
Yep.
for IRs or convolution reverbs is what it's called in Ableton,
Yep.
or by another group of people, convolution reverbs. So, and for those of you who don't know, what you could do is Sony had this tech that came out on rack units in the 90s, where you could go into a space and it would record kind of like we do frequency interference response, in PA systems, where it will record the audio. Uh-oh, we lost Jimmy. It will record anyways. I'm going to keep talking. It will record the audio of the reverb, and it'll capture it like an impulse response. So the Big Sky, you can do a 10-second impulse response of any room that you want, whether it be like, the Capitol Studio. There you are. You're back. Hey, buddy.
Yep.
The Capitol Studio, in California. Somebody has gone into the Taj Mahal in India and they've recorded an IR of the Taj Mahal. Somebody retrospectively has done the largest underground cave in the world. They made that
Yep.
an IR as well. So it's like, in theory, you could take these super realistic places and with your guitar, you're at this day and age in your amp sim, you could run the Big Sky MX in post of your amp sim with like a studio room reverb to give it more of a realistic sound going into your cloud reverb, or vice versa, however you wanted to do it. So, I mean, yeah, I think if there's anything that I was super interested in, besides the parallel reverb thing where you could pan left and right, I think that IR loading was probably what I was most excited about.
Yeah.
When I saw it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Because it's pretty common for you to be able to get like really good high quality lexicon impulse responses, which basically gives you like that exact, like the lexicon hall, like you can actually put that into your Big Sky, which I think is super cool. In addition to obviously the ability to capture a specific space that you have in mind. I also did hear, because majority of guitarists use impulse responses for cabs, so that was another discussion how you could use an amp modeler without a cab and apply your cab in there, and then put the reverb, another reverb after that or before or whatever.
Before, yeah, you could basically even run a tube preamp. Yeah, and yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of that when I saw the IR thing. I went straight to convolution reverb, so I didn't even think about like cab sim. That's cool.
Yeah. Looks like there's obviously the panning back and forth, all kinds of that's all pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like, unfortunately, like I'm just barely disconnected from that Strymon world to where nothing is really all that crazy to me. Like everything I heard sounded really good, and it did sound like an upgrade from the previous Big Sky. So Bradford, his video actually was really, really good on his like initial release video from Worship Studios.
Oh yeah, the one he was shilling on me in my okay.
Well, or more like the one that you were
shilling on it. Yeah,
you were poking the bear, right?
I was poking the big cuddly grizzly bear at Bradford.
Yeah. So his demo sounded really, really good. It's kind of weird, man. Like there are some effects that are pretty cool and unique from like a signal routing perspective that just don't really do it for me.
I will say, if I'm going to say one thing about it, I will say the 32-bit float that they added to it.
Yeah.
As far as with the DSP processing, like for those of you who know the Big Sky and its quirks in the last 10 years, is that when you push an abundant amount of gain through it, it clips. Even at the guitar level, it's not really a high headroom pedal. And so a lot of guitar players kind of moved on from it after a few years, knowing that was a problem, mostly in the studio if they're trying to run it through keys and synths and stuff like that, or in post. They're having to attenuate down. So the 32-bit float is relieving some of that stress of high headroom impedance and stuff like that. So that's kind of that's like more boring. I mean, that's the stuff I'm interested in, but it's more boring science stuff. I think more people are upset that they didn't put a new reverb algorithm
yeah, I know, right?
in there, or that I think a lot of people too are kind of jazzed off. There's not true spillover, but I don't care. It's not worth it to me. But I will say, it's like an iPhone, oh, the new iPhone 15 came out. Well, what's different? Well, it's got a bigger battery. Okay. Yeah. Well, what about what else does it have? Oh, it's got the ARM 16 processor in it. Okay. Well, is that better? Yeah, a little bit. Well, what about the screen? Well, the old one was at 600 nits and this one's at 650 nits. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is it going to be something that I think that people need to like sell the farm and jump ship from their Big Sky? No, but
yeah.
If you got the money to burn, it's, if it's like burning a hole in your pocket, I mean, or you're looking to get an upgrade, if you're an RV5 guy looking to upgrade, I would say that it's worth it. So
yeah.
What about you? I know that you were touching on the price on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, I think the price is fine. Like, I mean,
yeah, it doesn't
like it's just we're in a different world nowadays. Like that's really it. We're in a different world. It's, we're not going to be getting these crazy technologically advanced ultra high resolution effects for, I don't know, $400 or whatever.
The ARM processors that they're using, even if you think about what the capabilities that processor has.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I'm so glad it's not the only one who thinks it's another iPhone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I saw you
Also,
laugh.
hey, Sam. Thanks for joining. My
There
buddy
you
Sam.
go.
Buddy Sam Jones.
Hey,
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah. It's okay. So okay. So when it first came out, and I was texting you, I was like, dude, this looks like. I literally thought it looked like a Boss RV500. Like something about the interface with the screen and the text and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, dude, this.
That's why we put the meme out,
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's why I did it, because I was laughing too. And there were so many people, I saw so much schlack that people were like, oh, it's not an LCD for, sub $700. It needs to have a brighter LCD. And I don't need to be just like, I turn off the LCD on my Mercury X. I just put it on the easy mode where it just shows the name of the preset. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to be distracted by, I want to see finally when somebody tries to put Doom on one of these pedals. That's what I'm waiting for.
Well, the weird thing is that it's an OLED screen, like an iPhone or whatever. I'm just surprised that they went with that. I mean, okay, so obviously the design element, and I guess we're getting into user interface.
Yeah, UI UX.
It was intentional that they went the route that they did with the dark green text. It's like, that's definitely a callback to old rack units and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure.
I just don't like it. Like, I don't like that flow. Like, that flow of trying to orient stuff. And granted, of course, they have their editor, so obviously, very few people are actually going to do anything.
Well,
on
it's
the pedal
correction.
itself,
They have the editor for the Cloudburst, and they will release the Big Sky MX editor in 5.5 years.
Wait, is that true? I was under the impression that they actually had.
Oh, is it? I'm just poking fun because it was like they released all this stuff and they're like Nixie 2.0, and then it took like 2 years for Nixie 2.0 to come out.
Yeah.
Are you looking it up right now?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that'd be good for them if they do. I just know from a design, it's like somebody's commenting on here. Brendan is saying visually it looks very similar. I wonder if they had changed the design of the hardware and the UI more, if people would be more into upgrading to it.
Yeah.
You know what? I think you're right. Like, you got people like Chase Bliss who are coming out with their Automatone series with moving faders, and you've got Mercury X, which has got a color LCD, on it, and you've just got people really innovating the game, and then Big Sky basically makes it look like a sleeker 80s Big Sky. But I was commenting because somebody was asking, like, when is Strymon going to come out with the all-in-one unit, and my response was the amount of design infrastructure that you have to R&D, like all of the stuff that they had to R&D just to make the Big Sky look the way that it does now.
Yeah.
Like, and what people don't realize, I think sometimes too, is the manufacturing process at a scale that they are at.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna sell 20,000 of these units
for sure.
And so it's just like, it's like the amount of change that has to go in. They're probably using the same manufacturers that they're using, for their boards and for their enclosures. And so it's kind of like, you're not at the mercy, but why would you want to change something when you already have a model that's successful?
Yeah. I also think that, I think the user interface is actually really important for them in the way that they didn't take away anything from the previous user interface.
Correct.
They just added to it, and honestly, I think that was really, really smart of them, because the common complaint for other, whether it's the Empress Reverb or the Mercury X or even the H90, like the ease of use of going in and changing stuff and adjusting things and very quickly being able to get to a great sound has pretty much always been the big selling point of the Big Sky. And I think they even though I don't like the screen, I think they did just enough to add that feature that everyone had been wanting. So in some ways, it sounds like obviously they didn't do the bare minimum. That's not what I'm saying.
No,
however,
I don't think they did the bare minimum at all.
Yeah. However, they didn't do necessarily what I would have wanted, right? Like part of me, and granted, it might mean that I might need to get my hands on one to do a comparison, which would be great. I just don't want to spend $700 on something I'm probably not going to use. So I guess my thoughts on the UI is that it serves its they did a good job in ensuring that the user interface that they created is going to serve the their market well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, because whereas, you know, almost everyone I know who bought a Mercury X and then sold it or returned it has been like, well, you know, it doesn't have an editor, doesn't have this, that, and whatever. It's complex. I'm like, yeah, all those things are the selling point for me. Like,
I mean, yeah, I could point if I could point the camera, I've got my Lexicon and my two Eventides in the corner, my Eclipses, and it's like, man, if you guys think that the Meris Mercury X is hard to program, go play with an Eclipse, or go play with an H3000. Like,
yeah.
you know, those things that's like guitar programming purgatory right there.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't mind a challenge, especially
Yeah.
like, I think too, here's an interesting thought when we're talking about like the UI. It's just like, maybe I'm just moving away from the idea that, you know, and this is from the church culture from years ago, where it's like, okay, we need 3 reverb sounds for every song. We're going to have our, you know, our small, medium, big, and we're going to have, because we have 99 presets, we have to use them. Now this MX, I'm assuming, has 327 presets or whatever silly number it's got, because they use macros now. So it's like, oh, you've got your MSB programming, so you can do 400, 500 presets. It's like, we need 500 presets of reverb, you know, so we got to fill the spot. And I'm at this place where, just from using racks in the last couple of years, that it's like, I'm not treating these reverbs and stuff as utility. I'm treating them as soundscapes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, because the truth be told, on those rack systems, like, you have an audio latency from when you switch presets, you know, because most of the DSP is focused on the algorithm. And I mean, it's just because it's older, antiquated technology. But I digress. The point that I'm saying is that it's just like, when I get the soundscape and it's put together, I don't find myself having to want to tweak the reverb as much as I needed to, or like, you know, you can get your chorus sound not necessarily from a chorus pedal. You can get your chorus sound from pitch shifting the reverb. You know, on the Mercury X, you could do it before the dry signal. You could do it in the reverb like a Lexicon. And so there's a lot of ways that, like, you can add like 80s, you know, Landau tones, you know, there. You can make things big and ethereal, or add, you know, a little bit of a shimmer effect with a filter on it. And we haven't even talked about like using LFOs, like, which nobody's using on the Mercury X. I'm waiting for somebody to do that, you know, to start running. Are you using the LFO? Are you using them? Are they like pan? Are they, can they pan? I haven't really had time to mess with it.
I mean, it's assignable to whatever you want it to be assigned to.
I would love, how many LFOs can you use at once?
2, I believe it's 2.
Okay, because it would be sick if you could modulate, like, if you could use an LFO on the modulation and then use a modulation on the dry pan source, like post reverb. So then you could get that modulation panning back and forth. Now we're talking about, that's some juice right there. Yeah. You know, even if they could do that in an update, Meris, I'm talking to you. For the 10 people that are listening right now, we had 13 and then I started talking, and now we have 10. So anyways, I think that Strymon did exactly what they needed to. I'm just going to go back to it. They did exactly what they needed to, and it's going to sound great, and it's safe, and it's expensive, and you don't need half of probably what they're using in that reverb pedal, or you do, and it's your money.
Yeah.
But I mean, Chase Bliss a couple years ago came out with the CXM 1978, and that thing's $900. And it doesn't do half of what the Big Sky does. It's a great pedal too. It doesn't do half of what the Big Sky does.
Yeah. But it definitely has a vibe and a texture to it.
Oh yeah. That lo-fi, man, is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird, man. Like, so obviously I have both, right? I have the Mercury X and the CXM, and
that's a sick flex, bro.
It's a sick flex. It's a lot of money. But it's
rich in spirit over here.
it's called I have a day job.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the quality of effect, I think, is even, in my opinion. Obviously, you know, Meris designed the CXM in terms of the reverb algorithms.
Sure.
So like the sound quality is like right there, and obviously the Mercury X has a lot of the vintage reverb algorithms from the CXM in it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you can basically get the exact same sounds.
Except for the clock speed.
Yes, except for the clock speed.
They took that away from me.
Yeah. However, I think it's all a texture thing. Like I like kind of gritty reverbs. I like kind of grainy sounding things. Like I like a pristine thing going into a grainy thing, if that makes any kind of sense.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean the quadriverb,
Yeah.
Kevin, it's like, yeah, the preamps and the quadriverb are absolute garbage.
I have one right there.
So do I. Virtual high five.
I have
virtual
that
high
one.
five.
I have that one, and then I also have an Alesis MIDI verb over here. And then
oh, you have a MIDI verb too?
Yeah, and then I have a Lexicon, one of the cheap ones, MPX 100s. But honestly,
hey man, I got some
sounds
presets.
great.
I got some presets for the MPX. I got to send you. I think they'll blow you. I think you'll fall in love with that thing again.
Yeah. So I think all in all, so let's just ask the question.
I want to hear from the masses.
Is the Big Sky better than the Mercury X? The Big Sky MX going to be better, or vice versa, and why?
What are your thoughts, Jimmy?
It's weird because, like, obviously, I tend to never answer questions because I always ask questions back. I noticed that.
You do. I hate that so much. I'm asking for your advice, and you're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, just tell me, Dad. Just tell me.
It's always like, well, what's your inner motivation? Like, what do you who did you want to be when you were 5 years old?
Do you feel more like you're a Big Sky, or do you feel like you're more of a Mercury?
Yeah. I think and granted,
Andre thinks that it's too early, but I bet it's comparable. That's what he says.
I think they're definitely pretty tied. However, the thing that sells me on the Mercury X still, really no matter what, and the thing that would even sell me against, obviously, the Mercury X versus the CXM or even the Eventide. I think the Eventide probably has the most robust architecture for processing, so that in theory it could do the most. However, the signal routing capabilities of the Mercury X is the huge selling point because I am into sound design and soundscapes. To me, that is what sets the Mercury X apart from any other reverb on the market right now. That being said, if the Big Sky MX can take any of that, and even if it was like a quarter of the signal routing capabilities, because there are some signal routing options on it. I haven't looked into the manual very much, so I don't know exactly what it is. I think that could be really, really huge. Because to me, it's like, just having the simple controls of, pre-delay, tone, and maybe some preamp type thing. That's fine, and that gets you probably 90% of the way there for 90% of people. But for people like me who want to create things that are unique and distinct and have some level of separation from the rest of the masses, dude, it's a pretty big deal for me to go away from something like what the Mercury X is doing. Now, I'll also say this too. Jake made a story about this the other day, talking about how he thinks that the 96K sample rate is a myth and whatever. And I disagree, because you get double the data and double the.
This goes back to the 32-bit float thing. It's not important until it is important, and it's important that when it is important, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, so like the 32-bit float and the 96K sample rate ensures that you'll always have a low noise floor. It ensures that the quality of your conversion will always be like top tier. But I mean, here's the thing: Strymon's always really been into the 96K thing, and I think it became more of a source of contention on the
This was a timeline. This was an Eventide. Well, I mean, the whole 96K thing from your digital conversion, that was a whole battle. I remember people it's like Sega versus Super Nintendo. I mean, so many people were arguing Eventide. Well, it's not drive-through. and the Strymon's analog drive-through, it's got 96K, or whatever it operated at,
Yeah.
but like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Keep going. The Iridium.
So okay, so I think the 96K thing became an unknown like source of contention with Strymon with the Iridium because it was kind of a pain to get 96K IRs for a while there. And then
Mhm.
obviously the market corrected and they were able to accommodate that. It's a simple thing. You make your thing and then you export 96K. Not a big deal. You get more. You get more detail because you get literally double the amount of samples.
Hmm.
So
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. You look at like Mixwave's Benson plugin. Like
yeah,
you can overclock it by times 2, times 4, times 8, times 16 sampling based on your CPU capabilities,
yeah,
and it doesn't make it sound better. But
yeah,
what it does is it makes it sound when you're pushing volume through it, you're gonna just there's less risk of clipping.
yeah,
Like, so yeah, reamping becomes this really awesome thing using the bet, and but you're not going to miss that until you're going to miss that. I will say, from which is going to be better, because you mentioned the routing capabilities of the Mercury X as far as like pitch and LFO and like creativity goes, modulation source, preamp. Whether the preamp in the Mercury X is super great or not, it's okay. It's not super awesome. Like, it will dirty it up. I think that but people were, and maybe I was going more from the place that people were trying to use it as like an overdrive pedal to see if it would work, and it just doesn't.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the timeline can do more in terms of, or sorry, the Big Sky MX can do more in terms of like what the H90 can do as far as like series and parallel routing,
yeah,
with the two reverbs. I'm not sure what they can do with the dry signal as well. I think what it comes down to is, this is an interesting topic. There's a programmer who used to work for Eventide. His name is Italio. And he's honestly a genius. He was one of the guys that designed the time factor algorithms, and he was the lead designer, or one of them. I might be misquoting. He's one of the designers for the Eventide H8000. And
yeah.
so that right there, what he talks about is they took the delays, like the band delays from the H8000 and the Eclipse, and they started putting them in the time factor. And what they did was they cannibalized your options, like
Mm,
as far as like frequency response and panning control and LFO and how many taps you can use and ultra tap. And so they were listening to the market. Guitar players wanted something that was plug and play easy. And I think that what Strymon has done in this sense is they have taken the liberty themselves, kind of like Eventide has with their like Black Hole pedal now. If you've ever played a Black Hole on the rack units, it does not sound the same because it's not even reverb. It's diffuse delay is what it
mm,
is.
yeah,
And so it's two diffusion delays in series with each other, and chorus has been mixed in, and they're panning back and forth. It's a whole thing. But Strymon, what they've done is they're basically like mommy and daddy, and they said, we've decided what's most important in the reverb to you, and we will give you the illusion that you can tweak some things in there
mm,
by adding some diffusion and taking some diffusion, by adding some high end or top end and taking some top end out. And
yeah,
for 99% of people that are going to play these things, that's more than fine.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, if I close my eyes and I hear you play on your Mercury X and I hear a Big Sky MX, it's like, I'm not going to comment and say, oh man, the guy that was playing the MX, I really miss the pitch shifting going on the dry signal of his reverb,
yeah,
and I'm just going to disqualify him because of that. So I think from a standpoint, it's like, it goes back to I think that the MX is going to be wildly successful. I think it's going to be usable. Will I have one probably in the course of the next decade? I probably will get my hands on one at some point.
yeah,
Am I motivated to go get one tomorrow? Absolutely not. Am I happy
yeah,
with what I have? Sure. I just think we're at a really cool day and age where it's like 10 years ago, you had, t- the timeline was out, Big Sky was coming out, and you had the Eventide, space pedal, and
yeah,
that's all we had.
yeah.
And so it's like,
Or
there's this,
the RV5 if
well,
you're
you had an
just
RV5, but the truth is that
or
the
the blue
RV5,
sky or the blue sky.
the RV5, yeah, and most guys had a blue sky that were doing the super ambient church thing. They had the blue sky and they had an RV5 because the RV5 couldn't go fully wet. It has about 6 seconds or 7 seconds of decay, and it's super bright. And it sounds magical for the
Yeah.
one thing that it does, but it's not going to do a bunch of things well. So, I mean, Strymon kind of answered this question of like, well, here you can do all these things with it, and they were the only one. They literally cornered the market for more than a decade, because
Yeah.
even when the Empress came out, it sounds fantastic, but it has a ton of shortcomings and quirks that you have to get over to be able to utilize it. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't even enough for people to sneeze at. I don't think really people sneezed at reverb until the CXM came out versus the Big Sky. And that's when I think a lot of people kind
Yeah.
of lifted their, because even the Nunabear Wet was like a singular pedal with knobs, no presets. And I mean, then the Illumin came out, and I think the Illumin just came out. It's a fantastic reverb too. It just came out 3 years too late. So
Yeah.
that's
Now,
my
okay.
short.
So on that topic, where do you think the original Mercury 7 kind of fits into there?
I think the Mercury 7, it's kind of like, it's like, I think we're talking like Blue Sky versus Big Sky is what we're talking about, because I think the Mercury 7, like it's identical. The algorithms are identical in the MX. It's the same algorithms. They've admitted that. You just don't have the control. Again, they've cannibalized the control that you can have. You can play with the LFOs, but you're not going to be moving them around in the stereo field.
Well, okay, no. So let's take a step back though. So
Okay.
in pedal format, because I want to say the Mercury 7 came out 2015, 16-ish or so.
It was 2000. It was 2018 when it came out.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure, because I bought one pretty quickly after it came out. I was pretty anti-Strymon at that point. So
yeah, because what drew me to the Mercury 7 originally was obviously I saw a few demos. That led me down the route of getting into the original Blade Runner sound design and all that kind of stuff, and you know, all the storyline behind the Mercury 7, right? I still think I wouldn't put the Mercury 7 in the same camp as a Blue Sky.
well, yeah, I mean, that's probably premature of me to say.
Well, no, it makes sense because they're smaller reverb pedals compared to the quote big box reverb pedals, right?
I mean, yeah, and the MIDI control. I mean, sure, Maris has MIDI, and Big Sky V2 has MIDI on it now too. But you've got to get a special cable. You got to buy a MIDI controller. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
I just
obviously, So obviously, the big limitation with the Mercury 7 was, obviously, there's no screen, so it's more. It's not knob per function, because you have secondary controls. So like to me, the biggest the issue with the Mercury 7 was just that you had to constantly remember what was pre-delay, what was this thing, what was this thing, what was that thing, right? But I think sound quality wise, it was right up there. Maybe a little less than what the Big Sky was able to do, but ultimately I think that comes down to preference.
And what I was doing is, it's because it had 13 presets. Like every song would change, and I would make one preset, and then I had an expression pedal that was assigned so I could, move it at will to make it super wet and super decayed. I would change the decay and the mix kind of at liberdom.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't a problem. That wasn't a problem for me. Again, I think that there's just this is opening up a can of worms. There's this idea that, and this is just from Business 101. You know this. People are always going to oversell what you need.
Yeah.
And so I think that Strymon capitalized on a moment when church guitarists were jumping into this area of, and it's kind of shrouded in this like, well, we want to give our Lord the best, so we're going to buy the best equipment, which I agree with that theology. Like, I 100% agree with that idea, but to make it the altar that which people are standing on, like as the end all be all, I think that people are oversold on the idea of, well, I need all of this to make it, to absolutely make it work. And so I think
the need versus want is it's always a weird conversation, because like I think we so many people are unable to say they want something, because want indicates something related to self, and a lot of the church world is kind of opposed to self.
Yeah,
Like,
that's yeah, we got to be careful because this is not a Calvinistic podcast. We're no self-deprecation here.
yeah. So it's the funny thing is it's like you wanting the thing is
Oh, bad, 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 bad. Yeah, no, no, no.
yeah, but in reality, like you wanting something is the only reason you need. Like it's like you know like I want to better myself, be a healthier person. So because I want to, I make the decisions health wise, diet, exercise to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I want I want the ability to do crazy and odd, weird spatial stuff, right? And
Right.
like the fact that it's not a big sky cloud 100%. Who cares? Like I I want this more than I even remotely desire the other thing.
Well, the Cloud 2.0 thing is just, again, that's just, I think that's a cop out when people are like, does it say, it's like we can use all the clickbaits we want. I mean, you even put out is it the Cloud Killer, you
Yeah.
did the Big Sky versus the Mercury X, and it's just like there's that moment where it's just like, okay, cool. That's like on the guitar forums when somebody says what's better, a humbucker or a single coil guitar. It's just like okay,
Wh-
pal.
which is better for worship?
Man, why you gotta ask stupid questions? Both. I'm taking both with me.
Yeah.
Actually, the correct answer is vintage spec P90s.
Yeah.
That's the correct answer. Or
Yeah.
as David Lee, that Asian guitar guy, hopefully joins us later. The answer is the Epiphone Firebird 7.
Oh my gosh. No, that was Carlos Torres. He's like,
Yeah.
everyone's like, is it a Tele? Is it a Gretsch? No, you're thinking it all wrong. It's the ruby red, wine red Firebird. I mean, look at it. That's it.
He's like,
That's
look,
the
it's got
answer.
finish issues. It's got a vibrola. You've got issues. You don't work. I mean, yeah. Hold on. Yeah, you want to talk about Epiphone? Hold on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is great. This is really, really great. By the way, we had a really, really good poll, set of polls today, and I hope you all enjoyed that. The polls are intentional. I do have some kind of ideas that I want to go from that. Anthony Groves, thank you for joining.
Here we go. Epiphone Firebird. Look
Oh
at that.
my-
Epiphone
gosh.
freaking Firebird.
Wow.
This guitar rules.
I believe it. Mini hums, gold hardware.
Firebird pickups. They're not mini hums. They're Firebird pickups. It
They're
needs
They're basically mini hums.
yeah, I guess that's yeah. This she needs a ton of work, but yeah, this guitar rules.
Yeah.
And they just re-released this for those of you who care.
Ooh, oh, that's right. They did because
make
David
it
was a
with-
part of doing those pictures for it, right?
Yeah, and it's it's got the two humbuckers instead of. I mean, but that Epiphone, it's like a $1,700 guitar. It's an Epiphone. Yeah, we're in a different world now.
Well, here's the thing: we're in a different world, but those guitars are also a lot better too.
Yeah, this one needs new electronics, and
Yeah.
it needs a whole bunch of work to it, but it's cool. It's vibey. I just thought it was David sent me that Carlos's video, and I cracked up.
Yeah.
And I was actually like proud of myself. It's ironic too because Hislop has one of these, and we bought them literally at the same time. But
Oh
he's
my
more
gosh.
he's infinitely more popular than I am. So I just kept quiet about it because I was like, oh man, people are gonna think that I'm just like this patsy.
That's so funny. Well, I
Which
mean,
which I probably
it's
am.
kind of like, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say this, but like, I think it's more an indicator of what the market is moving towards. Because, like, I have wanted the black and gold Les Paul for like 25 years, right?
Yeah.
and so like when I saw that Jake got one, I was super happy for him. Like,
Yeah.
and also part of it is I was like, well, like, they're sick guitars, so of course, why would the market not want to go and get a bunch of sick black and gold Les
Correct.
Pauls, right?
Who wouldn't? I mean, I want one.
I want another one. Let's be real. Let's be real. So very cool. Well, I think this would be a good segue into the next topic of discussion. Okay, so Greg, you have been undergoing a quite the
A metamorphosis.
metamorphosis. Okay, so to those of you who don't
haven't
know,
who haven't tuned us out yet.
yeah, to those of you who don't know, so obviously, Greg has been around for a while. He's played a bunch of different guitar rigs over the years. Way back when AC-15s were the rage and some people were hating on them, Bassmans, like pre-Pro Sonic Bethel era, all that kind of stuff, right? So you've had a lot of history. You've played Axe FXs, you've played Helix, Kemper, you played everything, right?
I have had my hands on a lot of gear over the
Yeah,
years.
and obviously,
I used to buy and sell. I used to flip it as a hobby to pay. I mean, when you're when you're balling on a budget,
yeah,
when you could like buy things and not be a shark on Reverb, but it's like I could find a deal on something. Oh, I want to try it out, and then I could sell it and either get my money back or make 10%. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, back before Reverb was fee central for everything.
Well, it's just like, or hey, I'll buy your pedal, but I'm going to ask for 45% off your used price. It's just nuts. I don't sell in there anymore.
Actually, before we go down the other rabbit hole, by the way, everyone who's interested who've reached out to me about the things I'm selling, I am selling everything below market value currently. So yes. FYI, so like that CXM, the CXM that I'm selling is
ultra rare, $11.99.
No, the CXM that I'm selling is $50 less than anything you'll find in Reverb. So.
Minus
if you want it,
minus the taxes and the shipping.
Yes, and I'll.
My goodness.
Yeah, so if the CXM 978, $700 straight to your door. I always cover shipping because I ain't like that. Anyway, so
what a guy.
What a guy. That's me. I'm the guy. Anyway, okay, so so that's the preface. You've used anything and everything. Even more recently, you've used. Your amps with a load box using the Universal Audio aux, the pedal.
That's what I'm currently using. I'm using that's full time.
Yeah. So Greg is in the works of transitioning to an Ableton based guitar rig, or you're currently in the works of designing it and setting it up and all that kind of stuff. With you have a really extensive knowledge of Ableton, MIDI, and all that kind of stuff. So talk to us a little bit about. Maybe the why, but also
we'll show up
what you're looking at doing.
If I can disconnect my camera here, I'll show it too because it's right on the ground. It's kind of pulled apart, or maybe I can send you a picture, Jimmy. Actually, do you have one on message? Then you could just pull up and put on the screen. Is that possible?
Possibly.
Because we had one in the text thread. So it came up. We were talking the other day about modelers, like 2 or 3 months ago, and my dog's freaking out. Hold on.
I'm gonna look up this so I can figure it out. I think
I have the biggest scaredy cat dogs known to man. So a shadow moves and they like freak out. Go ahead.
So I think I have a slightly older picture, but it'll do in terms of it'll do pig.
If I disconnect this too, I think I can. Am I going to lose signal if I disconnect it?
Yeah, you will.
I just lost. Oh, nope. I'm still on. Hey. Okay, there it is. There's the rig. And
yep, I can.
Can you see that? Okay, so that's the rig right there. My interface will be sitting above the MIDI controller, and the interface is the Apollo. And then what is sitting underneath the screen? It's kind of hard to see, but I have 3 brackets that I put neoprene foam on and drilled into the enclosure, and then that screen is sitting on top, and it's all USB bus powered. And the tuner is bus powered as well. So you see that power supply sticking out. That's just an IEC cable, so it's easy to plug in and turn on and turn off. And then, so I'm basically guitar signal is going to be running into a tuner and then running into the interface, and everything's being processed by a Mac M Pro 2 with Apollo in Ableton, and then it's going to be sent out to front of house. So this is the rig. It weighs 16 pounds total.
Yeah.
And the dream kind of came about. It was interesting. We were talking about amp modelers and like Tonex versus Fractal, and this whole idea of like captures are great because they're super accurate. but it's like modeling is better because we can turn a knob, um, and the knob turning will actually like allow us to like more accurately like tweak our amps, like captures. We were talking about the quad cortex this week, like you captured it for your Strat and it sounded great, and then you start plugging your other guitars in it and you're like,
Yeah.
it's not really responding
Yeah.
like I wanted to respond. um so that being the case, I just started thinking like, okay, there are some plugins out there that are like really, really good as far as like guitar amps go. I mean, do they sound like the real thing? Close. Are they better than some of the amp modelers that we have on our pedal boards? Absolutely. I think the Mixwave um, Benson plugin is the bee's knees. Some of the neural stuff is great too, like their Morgan amp series, which is on sale right now for like $50. And so then there's this thought of like, we're spending, if we're doing dual Tonexes and we're buying them used and we're not capitalizing on the Tonex one that just came out, 6 or 8 weeks ago, we were spending almost $800 plus a DI to get dual amps. Now, from a cost perspective, that's dirt cheap. Like, we're talking about, I have a 62 Bassman and a good cell amp sitting over there. You've got a matchless. So, it's like, from a cost perspective, it's like $800 for stereo amps DI. I'm sold. But the idea was like, there's these great effects and there's these great plugins and there's this great utilization of LFOs and, being able to modulate clock sources and do all these things in Ableton or in MainStage that nobody is utilizing right now. And I remember a couple of years ago, people were asking the question. I think Abel Mendoza was doing it with that worship sound. He came out with his like MainStage guitar plugin pack, and it kind of had like some delay and overdrive, and it was cool, but it didn't sound like a great pedal board. It sounded kind of like a digital pedal board. And a bunch of people were like, well, why can't we use like computers for our amps? And everybody's response was, this is like 5 or 6 years ago, well, the computer is not a stable source of audio control. It's just like, that's a failure point that you don't want to have on your board. And even a couple weeks ago, somebody was talking about the failure point of a computer. And I laughed because I'm like, well, we use computers for tracks. We use computers for plugins at the soundboard. We use computers for our keys sounds. We're using SPD triggers for live streams. We're using computers for live feeds. And how often is that stuff going out on us? I mean, rare or never. And so I was like, you know what? I think that's an antiquated that's an antiquated thought process. And so I started looking around and started messing around with Ableton. So the idea behind that board is going to be, and I don't think quote me if I'm wrong. I mean, I might be wrong. Somebody might have already be doing this, but the idea is that it'll be MIDI triggered in Ableton. Clock will be through Ableton, and then it can run to the front of house, and everything will be a plugin. Everything will be a plugin from the drive. So like for the compressor, I'm using a UA DBX 160 XT. And then I'm going into some Tonex drive captures. My amps right now are, it's a Mixwave Benson in stereo, and I'm just panning the cabs left and right. And so, but it's a true stereo. It's essentially two Bensons. My delays are Valhalla Vintage delay and the Sound Toys Echo Boy. My reverbs are the Big Sky plugin, ironically. And then I have the Arturia Lexicon 224 XL reverb. And so, and Valhalla Vintage for like the shimmer stuff. Modulation is coming from Eventide's plugin. I mean, Eventide just released their new, H3000 2.0 plugin today, which sounds incredible. It's like I could throw that in there. And so the whole idea is like, it's like I'm gonna probably do a video blog about it too, where it's like we cost it out, depending on your laptop and how many plugins you're using in your CPU. I mean, plugins don't use that much CPU. I think in total I'll be using like 15 instances of like track CPU for like plugins, and then you're using your interface, and your interface can be as cheap or as expensive as you want it to be. I could have put an SSL2 Plus on there for $100. You need a MIDI controller, so that's going to be an expensive endeavor. So the Morningstar kind of seemed to fit the bill, and a volume pedal for expression. And so really, and I mean, that screen that was on there, that big LCD screen, I'll go back to it. That LCD screen it's a 15.5 inch monitor, and it was $75 on eBay, or not eBay, on Amazon. And it's 1080p.
So I think The reason why amp or computer based amp rigs, or let me rephrase that, like laptop based amp rigs, because technically every single
Okay.
digital pedal that we use is a computer, right? I think the reason why I never really caught on is because guitarists are so tied to their pedal board, their rig, whatever it is. Like the foot
Sure.
the foot tap dance thing, the foot switch on, or whatever. I think like that is a huge thing that guitarists didn't really ever want to give up. But also, like, the fact, like, I think majority of them just like that kind of setup. They just like the ability to press things. And so,
Oh, sure.
You in my talks with you are combating that paradigm by actually creating MIDI clips in Ableton that engage certain pedals, so that you have an Ableton based pedal board in your entire setup, right?
Yeah. So that's like GM Guitar 24 just asked, how does it work if you're wanting to use your effects in real time without a track playing to trigger your effects? And that's an excellent question. And the answer is that Ableton can receive MIDI. And so your MIDI source, Ableton has the ability to run like 5 or 6 different MIDI sources. I think it's even more than that, like at once. You can have multiple controllers. So you can have like your trigger pads and your keyboards, and then you can have your faders and your automation. You can have multiple plugged into a USB port hub on your computer and activate all this stuff in real time. And so Ableton separates itself into 2 types of tracks, audio and MIDI. Obviously the MIDI track, you need some sort of MIDI keyboard to trigger. So what I'm using is, and this is kind of what Jimmy and I have been playing around with, even talking today on the phone, was using MIDI tracks to then send MIDI information into the audio track, which is my virtual pedal board in Ableton. So I'm using a combination of actually only 2 audio tracks. One is my pedal board and one is my amps. And then the pedal board has a bunch of instrument racks where I can use chain effects, which is CC commands, and I can use macros, which is I can assign macros to like have quick access to all my knobs. So the only downfall is that I'll have to have a mouse and a keyboard with me, but again, a portable mouse and a pedal board that's Bluetooth that I can just literally go blip on to make a change. To me, that's inconsequential. I just come from the world that I used to use an AXFX 2XL. I've had an AXFX 3XL before. I'm used to rack stuff. So I'm used to turning around and going, click, 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 click. And even guys that use live amps, we got to put our guitars down, go walk in the back, turn some knobs. So it's like, to me, pulling out a keyboard and a mouse is like the modern version of setting my guitar down, going into the amp room.
You know what would be kind of funny? It'd be kind of funny if you just attached a little like Apple trackpad to like the flat surface on your guitar.
I thought about putting a trackpad on the pedal board. I thought about putting one on there, but it's like I don't have a trackpad, and that's $150, and I'm trying to again ball with the budget, so it's just not necessary. And so what I want to do is I kind of want to price this out and like, okay, how cost efficient can we get with this? And I think that we can get into a full on computer rig with MIDI controller, screen, and plugins. I think we could do it for under $1,300.
Yeah,
I think we could do it. And so that's
I think the thing is like some of it you have to exclude. Like you probably would have to exclude the computer in the same way that you would exclude a guitar from your pedal board rig, right? It's like it's assumed you have a guitar.
Sure.
It's assumed that you have a $500 guitar, $1,500, $2,000, you name it, right? Dollar guitar, and you just kind of deal with that. So I mean, for $1,300 or less or whatever, you'll do me.
And it's the cost of the computer. Like the only reason I upgraded my computer is I have a 4-year-old Mac M1, just the base 16 gigabyte. And that was more than enough to do things. I just noticed because I use it for work 8 hours a day that I'm starting to bottleneck the CPU and the RAM, just from all the spreadsheets and everything. So I went ahead and upgraded my computer, and I got a M2 Pro. I got a refurbished one, 32 gigabyte, 1 terabyte hard drive. And it's like that computer was pricey. Yeah, sure, it was expensive. It was $2,000, and it was refurbished, but it's like my question will be is testing this on like a MacBook Air, and seeing what that looks like. Or like at one point, one of the designs that I put into this was a Mac Mini on that pedal board, just getting a little like TV mount and then sliding a Mac Mini in
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah.
I needed a
Yeah,
computer for work.
I think the
So
laptop based thing is the best bet because then it limits you to just having one cable that connects to your rig, which would be the USB-C
Yep.
power cable that goes to your charger, and that's it.
Yep.
If
Well,
you
actually,
need it.
the new MacBooks are back to the new MacBooks. You can use Thunderbolt to charge your computer, or you can use they've got the Mac
Yeah,
the Mac
yeah,
cable again.
yeah, but
Which is
you,
kind of they went
it would probably be so the US the Thunderbolt port is still a little bit more sturdy, but granted, here's the thing, like
yeah.
it's more sturdy, and MagSafe can come off and whatever a little easier, but that's fine, like you can have it all connected. And fortunately, fortunately, the battery qualities on those computers are really, really good. So it's like,
Oh yeah, they have like what 26 hours of
Yeah.
video playback. So I'm assuming that if I was running my computer for the last 3 days because I'm transferring data and doing all the work, and today, right now, is the first time I
Yeah.
plugged it in 3 days. Now I haven't done a ton of plug-in and studio work, but even the old M1 MacBooks when they first came out, guys like Jason Mays from the Working Musicians podcast, he was talking about his M1. He was like, I sat in my bedroom on my bed in my boxers and did mixing for, he was like 10 hours before I had to
yeah,
plug my computer back
it's
in.
pretty crazy.
And it's like it's why it blows my mind just how far we've come. So yeah, it's like there's some things about I'm trying to streamline this because I kind of want it to be a thing. Like I want to show people that
Yeah.
this is a viable option, and I want, like, nobody's done the R&D, nobody's done the legwork. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be able to like fabricate something because I'm
Yeah.
way too stupid for that.
Well,
But
well,
I
here's
can,
the
like-
here's the other cool thing. So if this eventually catches on, that can basically be added
Mm-hmm.
into like a playback rig, where you have a playback tech who
Absolutely.
is launching your set list, and you just have a wireless guitar thing, a wireless pack going to the wireless receiver in a rack, which is sending audio into the interface system, which is sending it into Ableton. Then you have this like really robust and redundant rig that's freaking awesome.
And the cool thing is because of like the bass stuff and Tonex, like the tone matches and like the Tonex bass tone, like the Tone Factor guys, they did the Aguilar tone hammer with some drives in it too. And I mean, we've got guys at our church that are using it over a tone hammer because it sounds that good. And so it's like, yeah, in theory, you could run with the right interface, with the right amount of channels and the right CPU handling. Like, you could put a Mac Studio in a rack with 64 gigabytes of RAM, and then you could run your guitars, your tracks, your keys, Omnisphere. You could run all of that through one computer. Now, the legwork to put something like that together is pretty immense. But I'm thinking if we can figure out how to break this down and showcase it, I just think that there's something
for
cool.
sure.
So if any of you 6 people who are on this stream steal this idea from me, I will find you and I will kill you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. If you do it better than I do, that's awesome. I would love to see it. So I'm all about open sourcing ideas. So, I mean, if anybody's got any questions, I mean, I've talked a lot and probably talked and bored everybody. Okay, yeah, case study. We've been doing Ableton-based guitar rig at my church for a couple of years. Works great. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to see either the setup or if you could send me the patch. That would be amazing because I just want to compare apples to oranges. And there's fallouts too, like with input monitoring and output monitoring and your dry DI and all that stuff. So like that's kind of the stuff the quirks we've been working out. But once I think it's worked out, I also want to try it in MainStage as well because MainStage has the allowance for plugins as well. So I kind of want to put a MainStage guitar rig together with plugins. I think that would be pretty
This is
neat.
how we'll make the big money.
Oh, I doubt it, but that's cool. If I can buy if I was able to market this and I got my golden black Gibson, if that's all I got.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy. I'm happy right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I got my Epiphone. I'm happy. I got my Firebird.
I'm just happy enough to where I'm still ever so slightly on the fence on if I want to get that AC30 or not. But I'm happy. I'm still happy.
Right. And I mean, the other cool thing about this rig is like the plugins can be as robust as you want them to be or not. So you can use Ableton or you can use like the stuff in the stock stuff in Ableton. If you have Mainstage, you get all of the Mainstage Logic Studio with it, so you can use all of their. I can't remember what that's called, what their plugin pack is called. They had a big.
I mean, it's just
Anyways,
like the what's it called? It's like the extended library of stuff. But yeah, it's just it's
yeah, Alchemy, the Alchemy
got it.
Studio. You know what I'm talking about? So, but it's like but even the idea is like, okay, the ToneX plugin is $100, and then you buy a couple amps and some drive pedals from the Tone Factor guys or anybody, Alban Audio, Alter Ampworks. You buy a couple of their pedals and you buy a couple of their amp packs. And I mean, you could use all the modulation from Ableton, delay and reverb. I mean, is it going to like blow your hair back as far as sounds? No, but it's going to sound like a delay with modulation, and it's going to sound good. It's just this kind of moment where I'm like, man, you really could do this for as expensive as you wanted it to be.
So David Yossi said, I like pedals too much. I love Ableton for my studio purposes, and Ableton Guitar Rig sounds super boring personally. It's still a sick idea that has a lot of potential. Yeah, so I think I hear what you're saying there, but
you're super boring,
so
David.
I hear what you're saying, but I think the potential of it is the untapped part of it, where it's like, hey, there actually is something kind of cool here, because a majority of people actually still believe that like plug-in amps, like of the higher tier, sound better than the majority of
absolutely. And I'm one of those people. I am one of those people. I thought that for the longest time, I thought the Fender, UA Bassman that they had, the 50s Bassman, the little tweed plug-in, I thought it sounded incredible. And I think it sounds better than the Woodrow.
David's like, I am super boring. Now you don't lie.
No, it's cool. And here's the other thing. This is not my mainstay rig.
This is not your mainstay.
I've still got. Yeah, no, it's not. I've still got pedals and I've still got amps.
Yeah.
You gotta slap your knee when you do it. Yeah, I've still got pedals. I've still got amps. I've still got drive pedals. It's just for me, maybe this is the tweaker in me. Instead of like trying out the gear and trying the new pedal, I'm like, what gets my hair back is like, I'm tired of gear, and I'm trying to get to this place of what's creative. And I feel like if I can create something that is useful to people that don't have access to a lot of stuff, where you could go buy Ableton Lite or even get it for free with like your interface, and it allows you to do 12 tracks, which is more than enough for what we're doing. And then you can put plugins on it, and you can buy the ToneX plugin or even Helix native, like, which is, is you get a friend to give you his code and it's $100. Okay. So we're $200 in, and we have everything that we need besides a MIDI controller, which you could go out and get one of those Roland Boss F7 MIDI controllers with the big foot switches. They're like huge. Like those things. I mean, they're a pain to program, but they work. They send CC and you can send PC messages. So you could create PC scenes that automated able to toggle up and down. And because Ableton's got a stable clock source, you could do all your time-based effects in there. It's just like there's just a big untapped amount of weird scientist, boring. I'm in my late 30s and I have no life.
Now on the technical side, I'm assuming you would run this in session view in Ableton, right?
Yes, correct. This is a session view. This has kind of been the reason for the big screen, is because technically I wouldn't need a screen at all. I could use a small iPad as a kickback screen just to have Ableton on and running and make sure that everything's functioning and passing signal. And the MC6 Pro is cool because it's got the swivel strips on there. And so I could technically program everything into the MC6. You saw a couple of the aux buttons on there. That's for I'm going to use the aux buttons for drives, because I don't have a hard time remembering what drive pedals on or not. It's pretty obvious when you're playing, drive 3's on. Okay. I need it clean. Okay. Here's clean. The initial idea was the MC6 Pro is like, okay, when I toggle on my reverb to a bigger reverb, the MC6 Pro will tell me, hey, your big drippy reverb is on. Hey, your high mix, high repeat delay is on. You're on the analog delay. Oh, you're on the digital panning delay. Oh, your chorus is engaged. and that's great. But I have the LCD screen on there now, that like that portable monitor. I have that on there because I kind of want to experiment with seeing how far I can go with seeing what's going on
Yeah.
in Ableton. Like that's kind of the idea. We're going to use, and you and I were talking about using these MIDI tracks as a form to identify what's going on with each scene.
Yeah. So what I'm asking is, would you, in terms of how you would lay out your session in session view, would you likely have like kind of like the Nick Staley keys rig template? Would you have all of your clips up top, and then your actual tracks, not your tracks, but like your master tempo, your master clock on the side, where it'd be like, how great is our God in D flat, how great is our God in C, how great is our God in B, usually because you're only playing how great is our God.
At different tempos too, 76, 82. You know, we're doing it in a minor, we're doing a minor thing. How great is our God?
Sing with me. Yeah.
It's back to the Calvin. We're just self-deprecating here. Sorry, I'm just messing. I'll probably make it like a Nick Staley thing where I'll have like my MIDI clips that's divided to like drives in one MIDI section. Another MIDI track is gonna be modulation, delay, reverb, and I don't use a ton of sounds.
Because the cool thing is, have like, you could eventually do it to where you have it lined up with a session view based tracks playback system. You could do that,
and you could trigger it based on you literally could just linearly trigger, or even use Ableton to linearly trigger every section for you of the song and change all your presets. The amount of work to do that for 4 songs, that would probably be like 25 hours of work.
Not necessarily, because you can save the entire sequence of the song as a song preset.
Sure, and you could save, and like we've talked about using Instrument Rack, I could save like soundscapes. You know, like I could save a soundscape because that's where I'm going to anyways. Like I don't need 8 different presets of overdrive and 8 different delays and 8 different reverbs. I've got my 6 different soundscapes. Okay, here's my big reverb. Kind of like what Jake does. He's got his 3 sounds. He's got his small, medium, large, and he's got the ability to make it go super large on any of his presets. It's like, okay, he's set up, and I'm gonna do the same thing. And and it'd be really cool underneath that on the master scene to have your songs and your tempos. And I mean, when I do this at the church, it's like if I have a MIDI switcher like an RJM or something, I'm not really switching presets like Kunde used to do, where you have everything turn on at once in the beginning. I was more of a Hislop guy, where it's like I just have clock going and it would change my reverb and delay over, because I don't want to be limited. Like if I need to make a change, something's already turned on. I would rather have just access and do a little tap dancing instead. So that's probably where I'm going to keep it. But yes, in theory, it's radical to think like, in this Ableton rig, you could also use that to fire your tracks. You could also use that to run a keys station on top of it, an Omnisphere at a separate output. You could also use it to send to you could send it to ProPresenter and automate all of your ProPresenter stuff all from one computer. Like at this point, I could just fire our band and it would just be me.
I mean, it's always been you.
It could be me making a remedial amount of money.
Yeah. Okay. So all of that is cool, except it's predicated upon making sure that it sounds as good as humanly possible. Because that is the thing. Exactly.
I'm not going to do this if it sounds like crap.
Everything we discuss is awesome and cool, and the features are really cool, but it has to sound good, and it has to at least. Okay, and I'll say this: it has to at least sound better than a comparable model, because I think it's not really going to sound like amps for all the reasons that I use amps and not a modeler, right? But if you can get it to sound as good or better than a Helix, or good or better than a Tonex rig, like it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna throw the I'm a big Seminole Florida State guy. Okay, so I'm throwing the flaming spear into the ground with this statement. I think that I can get it sounding better than a Fractal unit.
Okay.
I think that
where is Jason Biggs in the chat? He needs to be here.
I know he is gonna lay an egg that I just said that. Oh, no way. I think I can at minimum, and I'm not throwing shade at this stuff too. I love the Fractal World. I love the HX Stomp. I think it's a genius piece of kit. Like I'm not I'll poke fun, y'all. You know me. You've seen me probably on the gear talk places. I've just been throwing.
I mean, Greg is the guy who's created all of the really successful memes on my page lately. He is the guy. He created the Tonex one where it's like, yeah, these pictures are all the same because they are the same.
Yeah, Case Studies is on here. Hey man, by the way, your Aspen drive, I'm looking forward to it. And I don't say that often about a drive pedal. I heard Jimmy's last week, and I was already, he sent clips of it before we even demoed it last week, and I pre-ordered it. So I'm counting down I think I'm like 150 on the wait list right now. So I'm looking forward to it. But he said something else to consider is the free version of Tonex that lets you load custom captures, so you can buy some good captures and basically get your amp section for almost no money. Yes. And that's what I was getting with that Helix Native. It's like, it's $99 if you already have a Helix, and everybody and their mother has one. So just go steal a login code from somebody and buy it for $100 and put it on your computer. And then you literally have infinite, and now you're not cannibalized to, 7 on the HX Stomp, seven blocks. You can use as many blocks as your CPU can handle. Yeah. Awesome. But yeah, I know you guys are kicking butt and working super hard. So I have massive respect for the pedal building game
right now too, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, yeah, it's much respect for people who come out there and put out a product and market it and hustle. Like, that's being self-made is a pretty respectable
market
thing.
And hustle is awesome, but also, I mean, we've said it a million times. Like, the stuff just sounds really, really good. Like, it sounds when it sounds good. It's kind of funny. Like, during my Q&A last night and today, the question about like, how do you feel about, influencers getting stuff for free and hyping it up? I'm like, obviously integrity is the most important thing. If the person doesn't have integrity, then of course they're just going to do whatever they want to get either free stuff or get money or get free stuff and then sell it, which is obviously the really crappy thing. But it's like, I brought up the thing with them where it's like, hey, I bought the freaking Aspen because it sounds dope, and so I have no problem hyping it up because it sounds freaking great. Of course I'm going to hype up the thing I like, I hype up the Mercury X because I love it. I mean, it sounds awesome,
I mean, yeah, Devin did that demo of it, like the announcement demo of it. And I heard it, I was like, oh man, that's it right there. I was like, that's the pedal. And it's a funny thing too. I mean, not that it's a kilt killer, because I have a soft spot for the kilt in my heart, just from like guitar pedigree and stuff like that. But, it's like, if you're looking, that's the other thing about the Big Sky. Here's the thing. It's like, I mean, even the Bethel guys are getting away from the Veritas guitars now. And a lot of them are starting to, some of them were kind of exploring reverbs and delays other than the Big Sky and the Timeline. And now they're exploring different drives too. Kenyon's got the overdriver, the a la Bobby Strand. They're using the daily driver and stuff like that. There's always a kilt in there somewhere. But a couple of years ago, I was talking to their guitar tech, David Palaio. And I said the question about like, oh, interesting that like you got rid of he sold his Veritas. And he said, yeah, I'll sell my Timeline and my Big Sky too one of these days. And I said, really? What would make you do that? And this was like 4 years ago. And he said, he's like, it's just a sound. And he's like, and it's a great sound. And he's like, and I'm here playing at the church, going on tour sometimes. And this is the Bethel sound. It's the Timeline, Big Sky, and the kilt. He's like, this is the Bethel sound. And so to play the part, I have to use the Bethel tools, which is the Strymon, Big Sky Timeline, Destroyer, the Vibratos Destroyer, and a kilt. That's just it. And I was like, you know what? When you think about it that way, it's not that big of a deal. So seeing somebody create something that's like the Aspen that takes all the great things that we love about that stuff and make it better, like that's just a huge win for everybody. So
that
David Yossi says, my board is about ready to go under significant construction again. Man, isn't that the worst? It's like, I know it was even David with Lee was telling us like he's getting his board wired now, and he was like, oh man, and it's like there's a couple other things I'm thinking about, like seeing if I can fit on there. I'm just like, don't do it. Don't do it.
So the way to do that is to always ensure that whenever you're wiring your rig together, that you give extra space, extra length for your cables in case if you need to move them an extra 3 or 4 inches. Like you got to do it, man. You got to do it. Like the rigs that are super tight and precise, they look awesome. But even if you do that, make sure that whenever you're plugging things in, make sure you have enough room. You need wiggle room.
Or if something
Oh my
gets
gosh,
damaged. Yeah, if something gets pulled on, yeah, the TSA, they start ripping stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't have any wiggle room,
I'm
you're toast.
glad that I don't travel. Obviously, it'd be nice to travel and do gigs and all kind of stuff. But man,
Oh, it's
I'm
fun.
glad I don't have
Yeah,
to deal
it's
with
fun.
TSA anywhere near the level that a lot of these other guys do.
I don't.
Brendan, he's
Where's David?
putting his kids to bed. I
Go
believe.
ahead. Because his kids stay up till 3 a.m. like he does.
No, actually, I think he said his wife was doing something tonight. Yeah.
He had a family thing tonight. Yeah, he has a family. Yeah, those silly itty bitty Tonexes are too tempting, and I have some extra pedals I need on my board. That's the story. I mean, for me, I'm at this place. I'm at this weird place. Like, it sounds super like like existentialism, and like I'm very Nietzsche of myself. Like, I'm over here like, you know what? I'm just like, even the Big Sky MX, I saw it and I was just like, like it's cool, but I was like, oh, I need that. I want that. I think the Aspen is the only overdrive that I've seen in the last couple of years that I'm like, oh, I gotta have that.
Well, it's really nice when you're at a place to where you're like mostly content, and you're not trying to like get something to replace something. You're just getting something because you want that. Yeah, because you're curious.
Yeah, the curiosity. Oh, Granny! Like I tried a bunch, like the Chase Bliss Reverse Mode C. He had a B stock sale of some blems, and I didn't get on the pre list, and so he like at November he sold them for like he sold a couple of B stock for under $399. I was like, you know what? I'll buy it, and so I bought one, and I came to the conclusion that I'm not really a bleep bloop pedal guy. You know, I tried a Mood, I tried a Reverse Mode seat, I tried a Microcosm. I was like, you know. Yeah, really not my thing.
Scott Hagen says, love y'all's live stream. Y'all have a good night. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, awesome, Scott. Really appreciate you hanging out
the bleep bloop thing is interesting because obviously, you know, I've taken on a little bit of that, but in a different way. Like a lot of people really like to have their glitchy, we'll call it glitchy effects, pre-reverb. Whereas I wanted to intentionally have things after, because I'm like, hey, like, it'd be cool to like create a huge soundscape and then let it get like fully altered up and weird and doctored up after the fact. Like that seems more cool to me. That also seems a lot less predictable. I've been talking to my bros lately that like predictability and unpredictability is going to be like the big thing for me in terms of making the sounds that I'm wanting to create be more inspiring, you know?
Oh yeah. And this is why we're talking about things like LFOs and wavetables. And it's just like from a Eurorack standpoint, VCA, like voltage, you know.
Dude,
voltage
Eurorack stuff is the thing that I want to get into, but my bank account does not want to get into.
Oh, I don't. I'm right there. I've got my little rack space page, like where I've got all of my modules. Yeah. I've got all my modules planned out, and I'm just like, I can't afford this. But that ghost in post after reverb, I think that was probably one of the smartest things that you did on your board,
dude. I'll have to share some screen captures from our YouTube stream. Bro, this past weekend I got some really weird things happening, like because like so what the cool thing about the Ghost is that you can because you know it has an LFO in it, and LFO can be sent to things, and then you can also affect the LFO going backwards or going forward. So and you can have multiple things doing that back and forth. So it's like I had this sound that was like kind of like a ping pongy reverby type of thing. But then like the LFO was being affected via like the envelope, like my playing, like the attack of my playing.
The pick,
and it was affecting affecting the bit crusher. So like if I were to play a little bit harder, the LFO might be opening up, affecting the bit crusher. So you get this like really weird like kind of swell into this like, what the hell is that noise? And everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is great, the greatest thing ever.
I love it, man. I love everything about that. I love everything about that. And that right there, like, to me that just hits it on the head, and it's like I'm probably have to kick off here in a little bit, just because I'm turning into a
Oh
pumpkin
my
after
gosh.
11. I'm an hour ahead of Jimmy and David most nights, but the it's the ability, like when creativity is being pushed in that way, like that's where I
Yeah.
get excited now. Like I think we're 10 years beyond the boutique effects. Full tone, Fuller came in, revolutionized. You've got guys like Robert Keeley who are just mainstays, and we're always gonna have guys coming out with great products like the Aspen Overdrive. But the things that are really interesting to me are like
Yeah.
what we just talked about, and that's why the Ableton rig interests me too, because it's like yeah, I could take like a Verb, like the new Verb UA
Yeah.
tape saturator, like, and I could put that on an LFO and do the same thing and control it via envelope with my guitar pick and a MIDI controller, like, and kind of do some of the same, like probably not exactly like the Ghost, but close
Yeah.
to it. Like there's some really wacky things
Yeah.
that you can do with
Yeah. I
that.
mean, there's.
So
Let's maybe end the call or end this the stream with this question. Who
okay.
is really change? Who would you say are the companies that are changing the game right now? And maybe maybe you can bring up like one or two specific instances of how they're changing it and why that's kind of exciting to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think Maris for one,
Yeah.
obviously, and I'm going to say it before you say it, are opening the door with the ability to route modulatory and pre and post and LFO and all that stuff. And they did the delay, the reverb. That they're going to do a big filter pedal, pitch shifting
Ooh,
pedal.
dude, that is, bro. I mean, I think everyone's expecting the pedals in the order of three, right? You have your big box delay, your big box reverb, your big box modulation, because that's what Strymon did. I have no idea what Maris would do for. I mean, like so if you look at their smaller pedals, they have obviously they have the delay, which was the Polymoon. There,
Polymoon, they have the
okay,
Hedra, the
yeah,
pitch shifting delay. They've got the Auto Bit, which is their filter bit crusher. They've got the Enzo, which is more like their
yeah,
envelope phasing. The Hedra was the last of them that they came out with before the
yeah,
LVX, and then they had the Polymoon and the Mercury, the
yeah,
Mercury 7. I think that Maris is really pushing that front runner. I would say if it was 2021, I would say Chase Bliss
yeah.
were those guys. And I think Joel is a mad scientist, but I'm not really sure if they're like what they're doing right now is anything more revolutionary. I think that they've put themselves into a niche of like the one-off pedals, like the Lossy, and the reverse mode C. And I think they're doing cool stuff, but I don't think that if the question is who's propelling, like I would say that there's Maris out there. I would say that now that Endorphins has got into the pedal game, I think that they're getting ready to push stuff. And the last one I will say is Hologram Effects.
Okay.
If they continue to do, because for a while it was, they did the Infinite Jets, and then they did the Microcosm, and the Chroma console has got some really cool things that you can do with the sweep of the filter. It's just not quite polished yet. I feel like there's all these companies out there who are like beta testing all this, like they're kind of crowdfunding. So they like put out their like Microcosm pedal and everybody buys it. So now they have capital. So then they put out their Chroma console and everybody buys it. So Maris put out their little factor pedals, like their Mercury 7 and the Polymoon and the Enzo and the Hedra. And okay, now they've got the capital and the infrastructure to be able to like handle some R&D. So I like Old Blood Noise Endeavors. Like they're doing some really cool stuff too. Like they're doing some really innovative stuff with MIDI and expression and ramping. And they're a lot of people don't, I think, utilize them because they're not really in the praise and worship vein. I think they're more in the like the grunge, sludge, dredge, doom kind of camp. But what about you? I'm really curious to hear who you say, since I went first.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I took
so
all the good ones.
I think Maris is definitely like the first ones that comes to mind, for obvious reasons. And I would say mostly because, obviously they make incredible stuff, and you kind of have no idea what they're going to do next. and I mean, for a long time, Strymon was doing that too. Like, they, like all of their auxiliary effects, like the maybe not the Volante, but the Night Sky definitely. Like they're kind of out of left field. Like, I mean, like, they released a phaser, and everyone was like, "Hey, we were just joking. We didn't want you to make a phaser," but they made a phaser. Like who's asking for Strymon to make a phaser? But they made one.
Yeah, and it's wicked cool
Yeah.
too. The Zeta, that thing that rocks, and it does a killer trike. It does a killer stereo chorus.
Hey, Jem, welcome to Wednesday Night Live.
Look, Spence Peppard's on here too, and he even said earlier, he said, "I want to see Strymon version of the H9 or the M5." That's an interesting thought, because earlier today somebody said, "I want Strymon to make an all-in-one unit," and I said they're not going to cannibalize their own product line. And I could go on a tirade. I wrote a 6-paragraph essay about why they wouldn't do it. I just don't think that the company's not profitable if they do that. They've got us all foaming at the mouth for a $700 reverb pedal, a $300 delay pedal, a $300 amp sim, and a $400 multi-effect unit. Why would they put something together that's $1,800 to compete with the Quad Cortex when I'm buying everything that they own and it's $3,000?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm also going to welcome David here. Obviously, I'm sure you've been on the call. So right now we're talking about who do we think is kind of like changing the game or challenging the game or whatever. I think Chase Bliss is in there too. I think they're still in there for the same reason that we don't know what they're going to do next.
Oh, and I love whenever, you're right, because every time I got on Instagram and Chase Bliss says announcement tomorrow, I get all of the feels and butterflies in my stomach. I'm always hoping that they're like, oh, they're going to do a big box automatone delay.
I mean, bro, like
Looper.
Okay, so let's dream for a second. Imagine if they took what was their analog delay? Like the one that no,
the Thermae or the
okay,
tonal,
so
the
imagine
tonal
they make a big box automatone, gosh, whatever it's called, automaton delay.
Yeah. A tomato tone is
imagine that they make the tomato tone delay version, and it includes Thermae type sounds, it includes mood type sounds, it includes full analog Bucket Brigade type sounds.
Yeah,
dude.
The generation losses ability,
bro,
the lo-fi generation loss stuff.
Oh, and then maybe even add the reverse C type stuff. Like they could go a lot of different ways, and it would and it'd be interactive and expression filled because of the knobs and faders. Like I think that could be a really, really cool move.
I'll tell you the Dark World reverb, that next to the Maris Mercury X, the Dark World is actually one of my favorite reverb pedals. And if I had the board space, I'd put 2 in stereo is what I would do. I mean, because that undulating shimmer, like the Zelda Dark World, like that's one of the coolest sounding reverbs, man, especially when you run it in parallel. So it's a neat little trick.
Yeah.
But mono stereo. Stereo is stupid.
Okay, so Maris, Chase Bliss for me. I think this next company has always innovated, but they probably could still do more. I think Eventide is there. Like Eventide has 40 years of history to pull from. They could do whatever the hell they want, and it would be awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Because honestly, I mean, like the thing about it is, what other pedal do we have on the market right now that is a dual stereo thing that has the ability to have multiple ins and outs? That's actually 2 separate devices all in one, where they could be routed in series or parallel, and as well as
it's genius.
As well as it being a true full feature multi effect. Granted, it's what the people asked for and what they wanted, but I think the they of any company, because Lexicon doesn't make effects like pedals or whatever. Like they used to like add their little.
They're owned by Digitech now. Digitech bought them and then scuttled them to a plugin, which I'm using the plugins. But
so Eventide, I also think I think a UA, Universal Audio too.
Ooh, okay. Okay. Yeah. If they could get, I love the aux stomp. People hate it. I've never had an issue with the Bluetooth. I mean, I had an issue one day and then I've never had an issue with it again. Also, I'm not like changing cabs like a sociopath every 6 hours. It's like I like the Alnico Gold that they have in there, like the 50 watt, and I just use that with a little bit of ambience, a little bit of compression, and I'm done. But yes, I think that UA with, because I'll tell you that Starlight, man, if there's one delay that rivals my big box deluxe memory, man, it's the Starlight. It's the Starlight. It sounds like scary identical close. If they actually made it that you could tap tempo, like, and like put it to I think that Ryan Clenny, if he like joins in and listens or checks this out, he sent me a kit and I started to, I haven't finished it. But it's I've got a UA Starlight on my bench and I'm trying to figure out how to do a tap relay like he did. So his is tap tempoed.
Spence Pepper said he's using the aux stomp every night.
Yeah, and Spence is also 1,000 times better of a guitarist than I will ever be. Even I'll tell you this: Spence's worst day as a guitarist, when he walks off stage and said, "Man, I really pooped myself on stage playing today." Like, I will never achieve that.
Oh my gosh!
That's not even in my dreams. Not even in my dreams. Like in my wildest fantasies of guitar playing, like I'm not even that good.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh, David, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts?
Mine's a weird one because I've been listening for the last 15 minutes or so. I suspect IK Multimedia is going to have they had a Jesus moment after this Tonex stuff happened.
Okay.
And I think they're going to revisit everything.
As much flack as I gave them for the mini Tonex, like, I just did it to piss people off. I will say mad respect for what they did.
That's severe innovation, because
cool.
They basically said screw Kemper and did it for like literally an eighth of the cost. Which is crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it's literally, you could put two together and it's as small as a Boss pedal and it's under $400.
I feel like if they play their cards right, they could easily revamp their trio of modulation, delay, and reverbs to compete now that they've got their hands wet in the P&W market and see how saturated it really is. Which I think they're probably one of the few first mainstream companies to actually dip their toes into the P&W.
Are they owned by Fender?
I don't think so.
IK? Look, this should be homework. I wonder who owns. I thought that they were tied to Fender at some place, but it wouldn't make sense that Fender's amp modeler doesn't sound super awesome and IK sounds amazing.
There's one guy who follows me that makes it sound pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I think there's gonna. I think there's gonna be a good mark out there for companies to re-enclose the two Tonexes into one. As long as
if you're listening, Ethan, we want it.
No,
we want it. We're
him.
Begging for it.
I think, I think Exact Tone would probably be a better bet than that, because it is a digital pedal,
There's a lot of digital
pedals that take power differently than analog pedals, and so if you're able to take, I don't know what the current and voltage requirements of the pedal are, but if you're able to either split it or do like a voltage, do a current doubler,
it's bus powerable too. You can power it without your 9-volt. You can do it USB-C, and it's an audio interface.
Dang.
It's just like, and I'm the loser over here who's lugging my 45-pound Fender Bassman to church to play.
That's
three chords. I only know 3 chords.
Matchless is 47 pounds for the head. Add the cab and the combo, you're looking at like 50, probably 60 pounds.
Yeah, and your quads look great, Jimmy. Your quads look great.
Quads for God.
Glutes, quads for God.
Okay, David, continue your thought, your ideas.
Sorry,
No,
I train wrecked
I
that.
think
I'm
it's
sorry.
interesting because I was surprised by how many PW guys had access to the Tonex One, and I don't know of any mainstream company that happened to.
You know what's weird is I follow a pretty wide variety of YouTube guitarists, and Tonex had, bro, like Tonex, like there were people everywhere in every different kind of industry demoing Tonex One. Ola Englund, who's like a metal YouTuber.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Obviously,
Todd
you
did
know,
too.
yeah, like dude, they definitely, I bet they spent a ton of money on marketing, ton of money on
But
like,
what's weird though is, okay, this is probably for all the affiliates and the YouTubers out there that are watching this. I don't know why none of you have affiliate links with IK Multimedia, and it blows my mind that you guys were okay with making content for free pedal. I'm just saying, like they're big enough where you should have been able to
that's
have an
like
affiliate link. Like
that's
that's
like
ridiculous to me.
that's like Sean Connery turning down Lord of the Rings, and he like because he didn't understand it, and they were like gonna give him what was it? It was like the statistic was like he turned down Lord of the Rings to be Gandalf the Grey, and like the royalties percentage that they were gonna give him, he would have himself would have
my
made
gosh,
$1 billion
yeah.
off of it.
So it's a side tangent, but I just thought it
It's
was
like,
really
yeah.
awkward. I was like, that's weird.
So okay, so you're saying that, I mean, do you have any insight in saying that people who demoed it did not get compensated for it?
They did not. All the links that I clicked on, there was no UTM tracking or any affiliate link tied to that URL outside of what was on there that was traceable for that.
That
So
blows my mind.
you don't
blows
even
my
think
mind.
that they just like straight up said, "Hey, here's a pedal, here's $1,000 or whatever."
I really doubt that they paid for it only because of they really kept it under the hood. And I think there's musicians I feel like are still easy to buy, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you're getting this really exclusive pedal.
Oh, yeah.
Don't say anything. This is a big deal.
Well,
know,
I mean,
it's the-
well,
It's the jazz. It's the jazz plague. It's the well. It's
Yeah.
exposure.
well,
We won't
I
pay
mean,
you because
okay,
it's
so
exposure.
but hear me out. If you have someone like Rhett Shull who has over over six figures of followers, right? Like he actually might just be making more with just like ad revenue from YouTube, so that like doing the pedal actually might just drive more traffic to his thing than what he would have been paid either in affiliate links or just straight up being paid for it. I don't know.
Who's the German gear reviewer name? His name is Ipic or
Oh, I know who you're
EYPIC.
talking
He's like
about.
the really loud,
He
bald,
always like
like he's hilarious. I think he's hilarious. He's like screaming at the camera. I get great joy, and he's a pretty good shredder guitar player. I mean, and he can play blues and all that stuff. But it's like, yeah, he's got 250,000 followers or something like that. And he's like, yeah, if I think a piece of gear stinks, I'm not going to review
he's
it.
a
He's like, I
zero
send it
BS
back.
guy, which I love.
It's like that. That's the
Yeah.
dream. That's the dream. I want to be well. No, the dream was to be as Spence Pepper's worst day minus about 50% more of his.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
my
You should
dream.
probably just
I
change your
can't have
handle
two
to not
dreams.
Spence.
Not Spence.
Yeah. Now, also, so do you think so? In term, back to the whole discussion of affiliate links. Do we see that with companies specific, like brands who
You
are
can.
making devices? No, I know you can, but like I feel like the most common thing is to get affiliate links for Sweetwater, Z-Sound, Musician's Friend, or whatever. Amazon affiliate
Amazon.
links instead of. I feel like I don't really see it all that often with like the companies that are actually making the product, like whether it
Like
be
Lambertones has one
Strymon.
now. Like they're for sure. Lambertones is
Yeah,
1000%
yeah.
throwing that
But
out.
but
I don't know
but
why.
but they're a young company though. Like they're still relatively young. Like they're only like 4 or 5 years old.
I think also Curtis is also a good guy
Yeah.
in that respect, and I think he knows that people salt. It's like that's the biblical principle of there's the man is worth his salt, and so I think he's just if people are going to be out there hustling for him, he's going to give them. He's just a really
Well,
generous guy in
outside
general.
of
So
the praise and worship like music world in general, you see it everywhere, especially with like SaaS type stuff and like software all over the place will have affiliate 1000%.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think I say that to say though I think it's only a matter of time before that becomes a revenue generator for a lot of these YouTubers that are micro brands, which I think
Samsung, say anybody that reviews a Samsung
yeah,
phone, affiliate link. Click on my thing, you get
and I think it's a
$25
smart
off
move
your
because
order.
then you're not having to pay extra ad dollars for unguaranteed risk.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it's really really inexpensive marketing because
It's a win-win. Oh yeah, you give somebody a promissory note of, hey, if we're successful,
Yeah, and
you're
if your
successful.
margins are right, it's not going to cost you anything.
yeah. Okay. So that's awesome, David. Your companies who you think are who are kind of changing the game.
Yeah, I mean, I still stand by IK Multimedia, and I think we're going to see a massive push for the ToneX stuff for drives. Like that's what
Yeah.
I'm doing, because ironically, my board's being built right now, and the only pedal I can take out for the ToneX will be the Superbolt. And I don't know. I think it's cool to have a Swiss Army knife of literally the drives that I own. That I'll probably post in my buy me a coffee thing of my drives you've never heard of BS thing that I'm doing. Um, that no one,
Your mullet drive, your pro
yeah,
analog
now
drive.
the BBJ that I got from Jordan Landers,
Yeah.
which by the way is really
Oh, you gotta
good.
send me that
Booty
link.
Judy.
It sounds. It
Oh,
sounds
that's
really
right,
good,
that's right.
dude.
I believe it.
No, it actually doesn't. It's full and it's so bright.
So he lied.
No,
It's
it's not.
catfish.
It's the frequency for the bass somehow works for the guitar the way he had it dialed, and it's so gnarly, dude. I'll send you guys the text of it. But the plan for me is to capture
yeah.
all those drives and just post it for free on ToneX, and I think we're going to see a lot of these one-off weird drives getting used more often, which I think excites me because
Yeah.
now it opens the world now to anyone who can't get a dual drive, which is hard right now, to get access to it
Yeah.
and not feel the need to buy it.
Okay. So
Or you got to pay.
So IK is one of them. Who else?
Oof. I think we're enough. I think Yuna or
Yuna?
the 29 pedals. 29 pedals.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It-
I mean, it's cool that it's very utilitarian. At least starting out, but it's like that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm not as heavy in
a good call.
the modulation reverb stuff, but the drive stuff and all that. Like I feel like no one's doing that thing that they're doing because I feel like they introduced a brand new product to the market that was like, what is this? And it's like it just
Yeah.
makes you sound better, and it's not an EP booster.
Yeah.
Yeah. you know who we haven't talked about? Polydigit.
Oh yeah,
effects.
yeah.
Poly effects.
Yeah.
Like they are flying under the radar, and I think that they're a close. They're scratching surfaces
Yeah.
that are really cool, like with their Bebo digit, their convolution reverb. Like that's kind of the Empress Zoya thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Poly.
but I like
is
the
a
unit
really
that-
great one too, because at least with their reverb, the ability to first of all with the reverb, the user interface is really interesting because it's all touch. Yeah, it's all touch screen.
Touchscreen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
touch
the
and texture.
texture. Yeah.
And as well as the ability to load in your own convolutions and all that kind of stuff. So it's a different experience.
it's convolution only. It's only
Yeah,
convolution
but
reverb.
but the fact that you can load in your own is what I'm getting
Oh,
at.
sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique thing. I wonder, and they have a similar style drive thing, which has like a lot of little like, maybe not buttons, but I think it's also like a touch screen type of thing where
It
you
is
can
touch.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like changing the game and that in a way that I'm like, what is this? Like even
But it
for
bump-
me,
But it bums me out because I can't tweak it with my feet.
well, I mean, just don't wear socks.
Just toe it up barefoot like Jesus.
Like
Bring back the Jesus sandals.
Oh gosh.
Christ our Lord. My gosh.
Like the Christ our Lord,
Yeah.
blessed be. All right, guys. I would love to stay and chat, but I'm
good, man.
I'm exhausted. My kids were up all
Yeah.
night last night,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna kick off here. You guys keep talking, and thanks for everybody for joining us. And
All
you're
right.
awesome. So
Later, Greg.
thanks.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I like where you're going at with IK Multimedia, because they did release their like big delay and big reverb type things.
Yeah, but it's been out for forever. Like probably
Yeah.
for this same amount of time the RV500. I think
I
it just
wa-
never got traction because it looked like a interbreed of a Eventide and Strymon.
yeah. Do you think that they will find a way to capture other effects? I don't know how they would do
Oh,
that. Like capture reverbs, capture, or maybe that would be like a, I don't know. I wonder if there would be like legal implications for them doing that.
that's what I wondered, dude. So this is the thing, right? And this is a great topic: is the ethics of capturing drives, right? Like,
Mm,
I haven't done it yet, but I feel very convicted to capture Jordan's drive.
okay.
It sounds horrible, but it's like I feel a little guilty doing it because it's like that's not mine. And
Yeah.
I'm granted I'm not selling. I won't be selling the capture anyway. But there's still like the ethical thing, right? Of like, man, am I actually affecting his sales if I do this? And that's what I don't want to do. Um,
Mm,
and that was actually something that I thought about before coming on this was like, what are the ethics of capturing amps that aren't yours that you made?
yeah.
Especially if
I,
it's really
I
freaking good.
I bet that there's, as we go more and more and more into a digital age with like the Internet of Things, I bet that there will be some type of metadata baked into these sounds. To some, I don't have no idea what that looks like, but like like if I were to play a song from Spotify on here, even if I recorded it into Reaper and then pitched it to a different thing, like I would still be flagged because there's metadata in the actual music that
Which,
can.
to your point though, I think there's a huge opportunity. And if man, if IK Multimedia does this, well, a lot of people are about to make a crap ton of money. Where you can have and sell the license in order to have that stamp from that manufacturer in order to have it
Mm,
verified, right? So if you do a matchless capture and Matchless decides to partner and do licensing with IK Multimedia, then
mm,
if you don't get the verification for it, you cannot call it a Matchless Club band for your profile.
ooh,
And if you do, then the only legal way to get it is to sell it. And now
yeah,
everyone gets their toes in the water in terms
yeah.
of like profit, which would be
I,
crazy.
yeah, I think there would need to be some kind of an infrastructure for companies to approve it. And the reason why I say that is like, like we use the instance of impulse responses. A lot of a lot of companies make their own impulse responses, whereas like an artist or a guitarist makes their own. And it sounds a lot better. Like
Yeah.
Celestian's impulse responses do not sound good.
No.
Like their actual ones do not sound good. Whereas if I did the exact same thing of Hislop's IRs or Big Hairy Guitars versions of it or whatever, like that's like they sound a lot better, a lot better. So I feel like there would have to be some level of infrastructure and quality control. Like maybe it's not necessarily a company, maybe it's not IK Multimedia doing it. Maybe it's the person who's creating the capture of the Matchless, or you creating the capture of the Fender or Mesa Boogie or whatever. Maybe there's an application process involved in it to where it can be licensed that way. I don't know.
And
Because what you don't want to see is you don't want to see the market being flooded with matchless captures and only two of them sound good, but they're all licensed. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, to your point too, it's like, man, that is such another way for influencers to make money, right? Is like if someone, Jimmy, could make this software that allowed it to be a conduit between the influencer and the manufacturer, to where, hey, Matchless, I'm making captures for like of your amp because I love your stuff. Um, how would you feel if with this verified title that you get like 15% kickback on everything that I sell?
Yeah.
And it's just like that's just passive income for the guys, and like everyone kind of wins, right? If you could find a way to create that relationship between the musician and the manufacturer, like,
Yeah.
dude, that'd be so crazy. And I know that stuff
Mm,
already exists, just
yeah.
in the world of like UGC testimonial crap that's already out there.
Mm,
um, that's I don't know. It's something that hasn't come up though, because I always am pretty vocal about people who sell their HX Stomp with his left preset at an inflated price, and I'm like, you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
That's not
Now,
legal.
yeah, I think it's definitely doable because Two Notes does that. They partner with a handful of different people who
Right.
list their, their what's the term they use for it? It's not their there's whatever they're dynamic IRs. They call them dyne IRs. That they're dynamic impulse responses, where they they're branded by this person. Like but you can get it on the Two Notes site, right? So I'm sure there's yeah, I think it'll definitely go that way as long as you like, as long as the company doesn't lose in the end of it all. I think that it'll be that idea will likely be very, very, very successful.
I think it'd be good too because it protects the guys who capture it, because now transferring and getting that stuff out will be a
Yeah.
lot tighter. So you're
Yeah.
not gonna have these people who buy it and then share their captures with the whole freaking worship team, or,
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
Which there's always a way if there's a will, but I don't know. It's definitely an interesting time to be alive, and I'm really curious how IP is going to play a part with that stuff moving forward. And I'm
Yeah.
sure people have thought about it too, but right now it's probably not worth the effort.
Yeah, I don't know. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably gonna head off now too. It is 2 hours at this point. Anyway, everyone, thank you for joining us tonight on Wednesday Night Live. I'm Jimmy. This is David, and Greg was with us earlier. We have a podcast called what's it called, David?
Negative feedback.
Negative Feedback. These whenever we go live, these will be available on YouTube. So you can check us out on YouTube, usually on my page, the Jimmy Rex page. And we're here every single Wednesday talking about gear, sometimes playing guitar, sometimes talking smack about Strymon, sometimes bantering back and forth. But yeah, that's who we are. I'm Jimmy, and we're going to head off now so I can get to bed and get to sleep. So y'all have a great night, and take it easy.